Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome. This will be a quick live stream, maybe 20 minutes. If I'm lucky, it'll be only 20 minutes about She Podcast Live, which is happening in Scottsdale, Arizona, from October 14th through 17th, 2021. If you're going, this is the stuff that a podcast editor, a show notes writer, any kind of a podcast service provider is going to want to know about. Specifically, editing and show notes writing, that type of thing. This is the stuff that you'll want to pay attention to and add it to all the other things that you'll be doing at She Podcast Live. Now, for those of you who don't know what She Podcast Live is, it is the brainchild of Jessica Kupferman and Elsie Escobar to congregate women in a place that's encouraging and what's the other word I'm looking for? It's good for women. I don't know any other way to say it because, yes, I'm an old white guy, so I apologize. I'm ignorant in that way. But I went to She Podcast Live 2019, and it was fantastic. I did not feel out of place. We were welcomed, all 12 of us guys. I think there were 12 of us. That it was fantastic. And this year, I don't see it being much different. So it's going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, and there is a virtual component to it as well. So if you're not able to make it in person, in Scottsdale, then there's a virtual component as well, which I'll talk a little bit about here. But this is primarily going to be a live stream for anyone who's going to be going to She Podcast Live in Scottsdale, Arizona, October 14th through 17th. Okay, enough of that. Here's what I'm presenting to you today. There's 4 things we're going to talk about, specifically the app that they're using, which is really the connection for everybody virtual and in person. The agenda, so the schedule of events and things that a podcast editor, show notes writer, or service provider would want to know about. The meetups, again, meetups is great for just hanging out with like-minded folks. And then the networking, which is really important if you're going to She Podcast Live as a service provider, as a show notes writer, as a podcast editor, even a podcast manager. In fact, Lauren Wrighton from Podcast Manager Mastermind, and she has a podcast manager show, she's going to be congregating people together in a networking event. So here's what I'm going to start with. We're going to start with the app. Now this is the desktop version. The mobile version, not that much different. Obviously the buttons will be at the bottom instead of on the side because that's the way that phones work. But it's got a lot of different features here. And if you'd like to see what how to use this app in a little more detail, I've got a video that I can show you. It's at this site, podcasteditoracademy.com/SPL21. And I believe there's a link in the description of this live stream already there that'll help you get there, get you started. Or it's below in the comments. And if it's not there, I apologize for not having it there yet. Hey, Kareem's in. Hey, Kareem. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so that's where I have a video that shows you around the app. But specifically, what you'll want to do is go to the agenda. And you'll see here on the top is the dates, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that's the full agenda. You can scroll through. You'll see the ones that are virtual. They've got the little green camera symbol there. So anybody who's watching virtual can join in there. And anything that you think you'd be interested in, go ahead and hit add to my agenda. Now, this is only going to be for people who have bought tickets to see She Podcast Live, whether in person or virtual, because you have to sign into the app with the email that you provided when you bought your ticket. Link to the apps are in that post that I have the link in the bottom of the screen here for. But once you're in there and you add these things to your agenda, then once you've found everything, click on My Agenda here, and you'll only see things for those days that you have said, hey, I'm interested in such and such. And then you'll also notice if there's any kind of a conflict, like I've got the bazaar as the expo. That's where the booth is. I'll talk more about the booth in a little bit. But obviously there's a conflict there, which is not a big deal. Registered check-in and the bazaar is not a big deal conflict. But that'll be a summary that you'll have in your hand on your smartphone device that'll remind you of things that you'll want to go to. And the way you do that is just click on My Agenda, and you can add it to your Google Calendar, or you can even set a reminder. I believe on the app, it'll actually ask if you want to set a reminder. So that's My Agenda. That'll help you there. Attendees is, there's more information you can get from the app. We might come back to this in a little bit when we talk about meetups, but for now, let's just move on to the next thing. That is the agenda specifically for podcast editors, show notes writers, things like that. I've got a spreadsheet here, and you'll see the spreadsheet. It's linked at that link that I gave you, but if you want a more specific link to that, It's at podcasteditoracademy.com/SPL sessions. SPL is She Podcast Live. SPL sessions is where you're going to find a list of those things that are specific to editors. Either it's about post-production or being a service provider, or it's by someone that I know is an editor or a service provider, or it's very, very related. There is one on here, Carrie Caulfield, Eric, and Jennifer Longworth, talking about the power of one word, how podcasting can improve the lives of women everywhere. Not podcasting specific. I'm sorry, not podcast editing or post-production specific, but because they're very active in our community, I want to highlight them. Plus, they're going to share a little bit of their story about Justbusters, which is the female-only, I don't want to say version of the Podcast Editors Club, because they started it themselves. They cultivated it on their own. They own it all. So really, really happy to see that session there. But this will be the things that you'll want to know about specifically as far as if you're a podcast editor or post-production specialist or service provider or show notes writer, things like that. That is, again, at podcasteditoracademy.com/SPL sessions. And you'll see a link down at the bottom. It'll take you again to the live agenda. So if you click on that link, I've got it formatted differently, but there it is. There it is. It'll take you to the app if you're signed in. Download the app. Obviously, I'm signed in over here. But anyway, it'll take you to that. All right, then we've got the meetups. Meetups is the third thing I want to talk about. 2 specific meetups. One hosted by Lauren Wrighton. She is the Podcast Manager Show host. She is the person who has a membership site, or a membership, I should say, for people who want to become podcast managers. Not just edit, but do all the things, manage shows, maybe even do all the things except edit. She's got a great community there. She's going to have a meetup on Thursday the 14th from 3 to 5. This is before the events begin, the major events. There'll be some virtual events, but this is before the grand opening events. And that'll be at JD's Restaurant, Hotel, Bar, and Lounge. I forget what it's called. There's links in this spreadsheet that I'm showing you the link to at the bottom that'll take you right to that event in the Whova app, such as, boom, the meetups. There you go. So if you want more information specific to them, and the date, the time of day is incorrect for her meetup, by the way. It is definitely 3 to 5 p.m. I verified that. The app is wrong on there. While we're talking about the time, I probably need to relate to you that Phoenix is unusual because they do not change time zones every 6 months or whatever it is. They are currently on the same time zone that California is. So whatever you're looking at, make sure that you verify the time zones that you're making reminders for yourself are verified against, like, Los Angeles, California. There is inside of the app, at least on the desktop version, let me show you that. Here at the top, you can switch to local time, meaning your current local time that you're in right now. So if you're in New York, this should say 10:38 a.m. I'm sorry. No, this should say, this is the time it is currently in Scottsdale, I should say. So if I switch to local time, if you're in New York, it'll say 12:38 p.m. For me, I'm in Central, so it says 11:38. So that's a way you can see all of these things in your current time zone if you're virtual. But if you're going to be going and you're setting up a calendar, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to, we'll just say, Los Angeles time zone. Most people can get that. All right, let's go back to meetups. So we've got Lauren Wrighton's meetup on Thursday. Then on Friday, I'm going to host a meetup, same place, because it's really convenient right after the keynote closes, where podcast editors, service providers, we all can get together at 5:30 through 8 o'clock. And then there's a, I think they call it a pajama party. Not a closing party, but a party after in the evening where everybody can get together, and it's a pajama party. So you got to bring your PJs. That is going to be again in JD's Restaurant, Hotel, Bar, Lounge thing, and come by, please come by. In fact, I've got to add this link there just in case you want to find more information. But it should be easy if you're going to be in Scottsdale for She Podcast Live. Jennifer Longworth just finished lunch at work time, is here to join. Yay! Cool. Somebody said, works now. I'm not sure what that meant. Sorry. I'll have to look at that later. All right, let's hide that. Let's go back to the sessions are all at that spreadsheet that's available. And if you see something that is missing, if you notice something missing from this schedule, please let me know. I'd like to add it to the schedule. If it's related to editing, post-production management. I want it on this list. All right. Next thing is going to be the networking. This is big, okay? This is going to be, we did this at Podcast Movement. We're doing it again. And this is where you can sign up to be the expert in my booth, where podcasters will be walking around and they're going to come and ask you questions. She Podcasts Live 2019 did something similar. They called it the Coaching Corner. We were kind of doing something like that in our booth too, but it's more what their idea was, which is two coaches sitting there. I prefer that you stand. You're more approachable when you stand. But then podcasters walk by and say, oh, hey, I have a question. What do you think of Riverside FM? Boom, you're the expert. You can answer these questions. Even if you don't think you're the expert, if you're a service provider, I want you in the booth. So what you're going to do is sign up for a time slot, and that is at podcasteditoracademy.com/SPL booth. And that's where you're going to be able to staff our booth. And here's an image of the backdrops that we have. I should bring up pictures of us at Podcast Movement, but I've got two banners on the side, a big backdrop. It says Asking the Editor on it. You can't miss it. This is where I want you to be to mingle with podcasters. I cannot think of a single way, an easier way to network with podcasters and get your business card in their hands if they're interested in your services. I cannot think of an easier way to start a conversation, especially if you're an introvert or you just don't like selling yourself. I don't like selling myself. A lot of people are surprised by that. I don't like selling myself. But if I'm in an environment where it's kind of encouraged, where I can help somebody and maybe a relationship comes out of that, no better way. No better way. Asking an Editor booth at the Bazaar, She Podcasts Live. Sign up for it at podcasteditoracademy.com/SPL booth. And that's where you'll be able to enter your name on the spreadsheet. I've got anything yellow is open. We'll get two people in a time slot. And you'll see Jennifer Longworth right there. 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is California time, on Friday the 15th. She'll be there. Cool. It's not for me. This is not for me. The booth is for you guys, even though it'll have my logo on the backdrop, me and Mark's logo on the backdrop. It's there for you to provide services to podcasters and hopefully make a relationship happen, get a gig. That's the goal of the Ask an Editor booth. So please sign up for that if you're going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona on the expo days are actually the 15th, 16th, and 17th. But everything starts right about the 15th, 16th. I'm sorry, everything starts on the 14th. So that's what I have to provide to you. Here's a question. Okay. Just to understand, She Podcast is for women only, right? Nope. It's specifically geared for them, but it's not excluding men. They're not encouraging men, but they're not discouraging them either. So it doesn't mean you can't go or you can't attend virtually. But it's kind of like if you were a trucker and you, I'm trying to think of a really good analogy and I can't. It's geared towards women. They're speaking to women. For example, here's an example. Podcast Editors Club. The reason why the Podcast Editors Club Facebook exists is so we can have discussions about the post-production side of podcasting. What we don't talk about is podcasting topics. We are geared towards discussions on the post-production side. We're not excluding podcasters because a lot of podcasters edit themselves, but only the discussions that happen in there have to do with post-production. So it's not being excluded. It's not excluding men. Because Steve Stewart hosting Pajama Party for a minute sounds weird too. Yeah, I would agree. And I don't know if I'll go. I'll probably go ahead and state right here. I'm not going to the Pajama Party because I don't like making people feel uncomfortable. So I won't do that. Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Very good. Whoever you are, thank you for that comment. That was fantastic. Okay. That's really all I wanted to provide you. I'll be there the 13th. I'll be coming in the night before everything starts. I'll be there until Sunday, when I fly out. If you're going to be at She Podcast Live, please come by, stop me in the hallway, wherever. I'll have my Podcast Editors Club mask on, or I'll have the mask on. Stop by and say hello. Please do. And okay. User equals only cream, can't see sauce. Thanks for having fun with me today, guys. And I will see you in Scottsdale or through the app.